Before we begin, I want to thank you all for being here tonight. If you like my stories, please consider giving me like and subscribe. It means the whole world to me. Enjoy the stories, and I hope you get the scare you're looking for. I don't know how I ended up here, staring at a screen that's burning itself into my eyes, my heart pounding so hard it feels like it's trying to claw its way out of my chest. The room is dim, just the flicker of my monitor casting jagged shadows across the walls, and the air feels heavy, like it's pressing down on me, knowing what I've seen. I shouldn't be here. I shouldn't have clicked that link. But I did, and now there's no going back. It started innocently enough, or at least, that's what I told myself. I was bored, scrolling through some forum I'd stumbled across after a late-night rabbit hole. You know how it goes. One minute you're reading about some obscure conspiracy theory, the next you're 3 hours deep into threads about urban legends and internet myths. That's where I found it. A post buried in a thread about the dark web, the kind of place people whisper about like it's some forbidden realm. The post was simple, just a string of random characters, a URL that looked like it didn't belong. No explanation, no context, just that link sitting there like a dare. I should have known better. I'm not an idiot. I knew the dark web wasn't a playground, but curiosity is a cruel thing, and I've always been too stubborn to back away from a mystery. I'd heard the stories. Everyone has. The dark web is where you go to buy drugs, fake IDs, or worse. Way worse. Red rooms, they called them. Live streams where people paid to watch others suffer. Torture, murder, all in real time, with an audience dropping cryptocurrency to dictate how much pain the victim endures. I thought it was a myth, some twisted urban legend cooked up to scare people like me, people who thought they were too smart to fall for it. But I was wrong. God, I was so wrong. I didn't dive in blind. I'm not that reckless. I downloaded Tor, set up a VPN, made sure my tracks were covered. I wasn't some kid messing around. I knew how to protect myself. Or so I thought. The link took me to a bare-bones site, just a black screen with a login prompt. No branding, no logos, just cold, functional text. I almost closed it then, but something about the simplicity of it pulled me in. It felt real, not like some flashy scam site. I tried a few generic usernames and passwords, half expecting nothing to work. Then, on a whim, I typed guest for both fields. The screen blinked, and I was in. The page loaded slowly, each pixel dragging like it was reluctant to show me what was next. When it finally cleared, I was staring at a grid of thumbnails, each one a frozen frame from a video feed. They were small, blurry, but I could make out shapes, people, rooms, chains. My stomach twisted, but I couldn't look away. Each thumbnail had a title, simple and sickening. Room 1, Room 2, Room 3. Below each was a number, a price in Bitcoin, and a counter showing how many viewers were currently watching. Some were empty, just static images of bare concrete rooms with rusted hooks on the walls. Others had people. I clicked on one before I could stop myself. The feed loaded, and the image sharpened into a nightmare. A man, maybe in his 30s, was strapped to a metal chair in the center of a room. His wrists were bound with wire, cutting into his skin, blood trickling down his hands and pooling on the floor. His face was pale, sweat-soaked, his eyes wide with terror. He was gagged, but I could hear muffled screams, desperate and raw, like an animal caught in a trap. The room was lit by a single bulb swinging above him, casting shadows that danced across the stained walls. There was a chat window on the right side of the screen. Messages scrolling so fast I could barely read them. "Cut him again," one said. "Make him scream louder," another demanded. $50 for a finger," someone offered. My hands were shaking, but I couldn't close the tab. It was like my body had locked up, my brain screaming to shut it down while my eyes stayed glued to the screen. A figure stepped into the frame, their face hidden by a black hood. They held a knife, the blade catching the light as they turned it slowly, almost like they were showing it off. The chat exploded with excitement, bets and bids piling up. The figure didn't speak, didn't acknowledge the audience, just moved with a calm that made my skin crawl. They grabbed the man's hand, forcing his fingers to splay out, and without hesitation, they sliced through one. The sound was wet, sickening. A dull crunch followed by a muffled howl that made my stomach lurch. Blood sprayed across the chair, and the chat lit up with cheers. I slammed my laptop shut, my breath coming in short, ragged gasps. The room felt too small, the air too thick. I wanted to vomit, to scream, to do anything to get that image out of my head. But it was there, burned into me. The man's wide, pleading eyes, the blood, the knife. I told myself it wasn't real. It couldn't be. It was a setup, a fake, some sick performance for twisted people with too much money. But deep down, I knew better. The way that man screamed, the way his body shook, it wasn't acting. It was real, and I just watched it happen. I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw him, heard him. I kept my laptop closed, shoved under my bed like it was cursed. But the next day, I couldn't stay away. I told myself I'd just check, just make sure it was a one-time thing, that I'd imagined how bad it was. That's what you do when you're scared. You try to rationalize it, to make it smaller than it is. So I opened the laptop, went back to the site, and logged in again. The same grid of thumbnails greeted me, but the man from the night before was gone. His room was empty now, just a blood-stained chair and a floor slick with red. A new thumbnail had taken its place, another room, another person. This time it was a woman. She was younger, maybe in her 20s, her face bruised and tear-streaked. She wasn't tied up, not yet, but she was curled in a corner, rocking back and forth, muttering something I couldn't hear. The chat was already active, suggestions pouring in, each one more depraved than the last. I didn't click the video. I couldn't. But I didn't close the tab either. I just sat there, staring at her, wondering who she was, how she'd ended up there. Was she taken? Tricked? Did she know what was coming? The questions gnawed at me, but worse was the realization that I was still there, still watching, still part of it. That's when I noticed something new. At the bottom of the screen there was a small icon, a padlock with a number next to it. 24. I clicked it and a message popped up. Private room access. 24 hours remaining. Below it was another link, this one labeled Enter. My cursor hovered over it, my heart pounding. I didn't want to click it. I knew I shouldn't. But my hand moved anyway, and the screen changed. It was different from the other rooms. The feed was crystal clear, the room brighter, cleaner, almost clinical. There was no one in it, just a single chair in the center, a table covered with tools, knives, pliers, a blowtorch, and a large mirror on the back wall. The chat was quieter here, only a few users, their messages cryptic. Ready for the main event, one said. Patience, another replied. I didn't understand, but the air felt different, heavier, like the room was waiting for something, or someone. Then I saw it. In the mirror's reflection, just for a split second, something moved. It wasn't clear, just a flicker, but it looked like a face. Not the hooded figure, not a victim, but something else, something watching. I leaned closer, my breath catching, trying to make it out. The reflection shifted again, and this time I was sure. It was a face, pale, eyeless, its mouth stretched into a grin that was too wide, too wrong. My screen glitched, the feed cutting to static for a moment before snapping back to the empty room. The chat was silent now, but a single message appeared. You're in. I froze. My VPN was still running, my identity hidden. There was no way they could know who I was. But my blood ran cold, and my hands wouldn't move. The screen flickered again, and the mirror showed the room, but it wasn't empty anymore. The chair was occupied. It was me. I screamed, slamming the laptop shut and shoving it across the room. My heart was racing, my vision blurry with panic. It wasn't possible. It couldn't be. I was here, in my room, not there. But the image was clear. My face, my clothes, my room reflected in that mirror. I didn't dare open the laptop again. Didn't dare check if the feed was still there. I unplugged everything, turned off the Wi-Fi, and sat in the dark, listening to the silence, waiting for something to happen. Because I knew, deep down, that I'd crossed a line. I wasn't just watching anymore. I was part of it. And they knew it. The darkness in my room felt alive, pressing against me like a weight I couldn't shake. My laptop sat in the corner where I'd thrown it, its closed lid staring back at me like an accusation. I hadn't touched it in hours, but the image of my own face in that mirror, strapped to that chair, was seared into my mind. It wasn't possible. It couldn't be real. But the fear was real, clawing at my insides, making every creak of the house sound like footsteps, every shadow a threat. I kept telling myself it was a trick, some kind of digital manipulation, a scare tactic to keep me hooked. But deep down, I knew it was more than that. I'd stumbled into something I wasn't supposed to see, and now it was aware of me. I didn't sleep. How could I? My eyes burned from staring at the ceiling, my ears straining for any sound that didn't belong. The silence was worse than noise. It felt like it was waiting, like the whole world was holding its breath. By morning, I was a wreck, my hands trembling as I made coffee just to have something to do. I avoided the laptop, left it unplugged, but the urge to check it was like an itch I couldn't scratch. What if it wasn't real? What if I'd imagined it? What if I went back and the site was gone? Just a bad dream I could laugh off. But I knew better. The dark web doesn't forget, and neither do the people who run it. I tried to distract myself, scrolling through my phone, but even that felt dangerous. Every notification made me jump. Every email seemed like it could be a trap. I kept thinking about the chat, those cold, detached messages. You're in. What did that mean? Were they watching me? Could they see me right now? I checked the locks on my doors, closed every curtain, but it didn't help. The air felt wrong, like someone had been in my house while I wasn't looking. I even checked my webcam, taping over it just in case, but it didn't stop the paranoia. It was like the site had infected me, burrowing into my head, making me question everything. By afternoon, I couldn't take it anymore. I had to know. I had to see if it was still there, if it was real. I plugged the laptop back in, my hands shaking so badly I could barely connect the charger. The screen lit up, and for a moment, I just stared at the desktop, too scared to open the browser. But I did it anyway. Tor loaded slowly, the VPN icon blinking in the corner like a heartbeat. I typed in the URL from memory, those random characters burned into my brain. The login prompt appeared, and I hesitated, my fingers hovering over the keyboard. Guessed worked last time. Would it work again? Did I even want it to? I typed it in, hit enter, and held my breath. The grid of thumbnails loaded, same as before. Empty rooms, blood-stained floors, and a few with people. New faces, new victims. The woman from yesterday was gone, her thumbnail replaced by a static image of an empty corner, a dark smear on the wall where she'd been. My chest tightened. Was she dead? Had I watched the beginning of her end? The guilt hit me like a punch, but I couldn't stop. My eyes flicked to the bottom of the screen, to the padlock icon. It was still there, but the number had changed. Private room access. 18 hours remaining. My stomach dropped. The countdown was real and it was ticking. I clicked the link before I could talk myself out of it. The private room loaded. That same clinical space with the chair, the table of tools, the mirror. It was empty again. No sign of me or anyone else. The chat was quiet. Just a handful of users lurking, their messages sparse but chilling. "He's back," one said. "Good choice," another added. My blood ran cold. They knew I was here. They were talking about me. I scrolled through the chat, trying to make sense of it, but it was all vague, like they were speaking in code. Then a new message popped up. "Look behind you." I spun around, my heart in my throat, expecting to see someone standing there, knife in hand. But my room was empty. The door still locked, the curtains still drawn. I laughed, a shaky, nervous sound, trying to convince myself it was just a troll, just someone messing with me. But when I turned back to the screen, the mirror in the feed wasn't empty anymore. It showed my room, my chair, my walls, but I wasn't in it. Instead, there was a figure standing in the corner, just out of focus, its head tilted at an unnatural angle. I blinked, and it was gone, the mirror reflecting only the empty room again. My hands were sweating, slipping on the keyboard as I typed into the chat. "Who are you? What do you want?" No response. The chat stayed silent, but the viewer count ticked up. 10 users, 15, 20. They were watching me, not the room. I slammed the laptop shut again, my breath coming in gasps. This wasn't a game. This wasn't a prank. They had my room, my space, my reality on that screen. How? I hadn't shared anything, hadn't given them access. My VPN was still running, my firewall up. But it didn't matter. They were in. I tore through my apartment, checking every corner, every closet, under the bed, behind the curtains. Nothing. No cameras, no bugs, no sign anyone had been here. But the fear wouldn't leave. I unplugged the router, turned off my phone, anything that could connect me to the outside world. I sat on the couch, clutching a kitchen knife, telling myself I was being paranoid, that I was safe. But I wasn't. I knew I wasn't. Hours passed, and the silence became unbearable. I needed answers. I needed to know what I was dealing with. Against every instinct screaming at me to stop, I powered the laptop back on, reconnected the router, and loaded the site again. The private room was still there, the countdown now at 15 hours. The chair was still empty, but the table of tools had changed. There was something new, a small black box, no bigger than a phone, with wires spilling out of it like veins. The chat was alive now, buzzing with activity. "He's learning," one user wrote. "Not fast enough," another replied. "Show him," a third demanded. I didn't know what they meant until the feed flickered, and the mirror showed my room again. This time, I was in it. Not strapped to a chair, not bleeding, just sitting there, staring at my laptop, exactly as I was now. The knife was in my hand, my face pale and drawn, my eyes wide with fear. It was live. They were watching me, right now, through my own screen. I dropped the knife, my hands fumbling as I slammed the laptop shut for the third time, but it didn't matter. The image was already in my head, and so was the truth. They didn't need a camera. They didn't need to break in. They were already here, inside my system, inside my life. I unplugged everything again, but this time I went further. I smashed the router with a hammer, ripped the battery out of my phone, and buried the laptop under a pile of clothes in the closet, as if that could hide it from them. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely grip the hammer, my vision blurred with tears. I didn't realize I was crying. I didn't know who they were, what they wanted, or how they'd found me. But I knew one thing. I was trapped. The countdown was still ticking, and I had no idea what happened when it hit 0. I sat in the dark, the knife back in my hand, listening to the silence. But it wasn't silent anymore. There was a sound, faint at first, like static, coming from the closet. I told myself it was nothing, just my imagination. But it grew louder, a low, crackling hum, like a radio stuck between stations. I didn't want to look. I didn't want to know. But I had to. I crept toward the closet, my heart pounding so hard I thought it would burst. I pulled the clothes aside, and there it was, the laptop, still closed, still unplugged, but the screen was glowing, faint and blue, through the crack in the lid. The hum was coming from it, and beneath it something else, a voice, low and distorted, whispering my name. The whisper of my name from the laptop felt like a hook sinking into my chest, pulling me toward it even as every nerve screamed to run. The glow from the closed lid pulsed faintly, like a heartbeat, casting eerie shadows across the closet. I stood frozen, the kitchen knife trembling in my hand, its blade useless against whatever this was. The voice didn't stop. It grew louder, clearer, a guttural rasp that wasn't human, not entirely. It wasn't coming from the speakers. It was coming from inside the laptop, inside the room, inside my head. I wanted to drop the knife and bolt, but where could I go? The site had my face, my room, my reality. They were already here. I don't know how long I stood there, staring at the laptop like it was a bomb about to go off. The air felt thick, charged, like the moment before a storm breaks. The whispering stopped, replaced by that static hum, now joined by faint clicks like fingers tapping on glass. My skin prickled. I backed away, clutching the knife tighter, but my eyes stayed locked on the closet. I couldn't leave it there. I couldn't let it keep glowing, keep talking. I had to face it. With a shaking hand, I reached for the laptop, half expecting it to burn me. It was cold, unnaturally so, the metal case slick under my fingers. I carried it to the kitchen table, setting it down like it might explode. The glow was still there, seeping through the crack, and the clicking grew louder, more insistent. I opened the lid, my breath catching as the screen flared to life. The site was still open, the private room feed staring back at me. The countdown read 12 hours remaining. The chair was empty, the table of tools unchanged except for that black box with its tangle of wires, now pulsing faintly with a red light. The mirror on the back wall reflected nothing, just a blank, gray void where my room should have been. The chat was active, messages scrolling faster than I could read. "He's here," one said. "Took him long enough," another sneered. "Show him the truth," a third demanded. My stomach churned. They were talking about me, watching me. But how? The laptop had no power, no connection. I'd smashed the router, killed the Wi-Fi, ripped out the phone's battery. Yet the screen stayed on, the feed live, the chat alive with voices that knew I was watching. I typed into the chat, my fingers clumsy. "What do you want? Leave me alone." The words felt pathetic, but I had to try something. The chat went silent for a moment. Then a single message appeared. "You clicked the link." My heart sank. It was my fault. I'd invited this, opened the door, and now they were inside. Before I could type again, the feed flickered, and the mirror in the room shifted. It showed my kitchen now, the exact angle of the table, the knife still in my hand, my pale, sweat-soaked face staring at the screen. But there was something else, behind me, just over my shoulder. A shape. It was tall, too tall, its limbs too long, its face obscured by shadow except for that same eyeless grin I'd seen before. I whipped around, knife raised, but the kitchen was empty. Just me, the table, the darkness. I turned back to the screen and the figure was gone, but the mirror still showed me frozen in that moment of panic, knife raised, eyes wide. It wasn't live anymore. It was a loop, replaying my reaction over and over like a taunt. The chat exploded with laughter, emojis of grinning faces and knives flooding the screen. "He's scared," one user wrote. "Good," another replied. "Time to play," a third added. I slammed the laptop shut, but the screen didn't go dark. The glow persisted, and the clicking started again, louder, faster, like something was trying to get out. I grabbed the knife and backed away, my eyes darting around the room. The shadows seemed to move, stretching and twisting in ways they shouldn't. The air felt wrong, heavy with a smell I hadn't noticed before, something metallic, like blood, mixed with something sour and decayed. I checked the locks again, the windows, every corner of the apartment, but nothing was out of place. Yet the feeling wouldn't leave, that sense of being watched, not just through the screen, but from every angle, every shadow. I tried to think rationally. Maybe it was a virus, some kind of malware that had hijacked my system. I'd heard of dark web scams that could take over your devices, but this was different. This wasn't just code. It was personal. They knew my name, my face, my fear. I considered calling the police, but what would I say? That I'd stumbled onto a torture site and now it was haunting me. They'd think I was crazy, and maybe I was. But the laptop was still glowing, still clicking, still whispering my name in that distorted voice that made my skin crawl. I had to destroy it. It was the only way. I grabbed a hammer from the toolbox, my hands shaking as I approached the laptop. I raised it, ready to smash the screen, but the whispering stopped, and a new sound took its place. A low, wet gurgle, like someone choking on their own blood. The screen flickered, and when I looked down, the feed had changed. The private room wasn't empty anymore. There was a person in the chair, their wrists bound with wire, their heads slumped forward. Blood dripped from their mouth, pooling on the floor, and their chest heaved with shallow, ragged breaths. I couldn't see their face, but something about them was familiar. The shape of their shoulders, the way their hands twitched. The chat was silent now, the viewer count frozen at 13. A single message appeared. "Look closer." My hands moved before I could stop them, opening the laptop wider, zooming in on the feed. The camera panned up, revealing the person's face. It was my neighbor, the quiet guy from down the hall, the one who always nodded politely but never spoke. His eyes were wide, bloodshot, his mouth gagged with a rag-soaked red. A figure stepped into the frame, hooded, holding a pair of pliers. They grabbed his hand, and I heard the crack of bone before the screen cut to black. I screamed, dropping the hammer, stumbling back until I hit the wall. My neighbor. They had my neighbor. How? He lived 2 doors down, close enough to hear if something was wrong, but I hadn't heard anything. No screams, no struggle. I ran to my door, knife in hand, and checked the peephole. The hallway was empty, silent, but the air felt wrong, like it was waiting for me to step outside. I didn't. I couldn't. Instead, I barricaded the door with a chair, my hands shaking so badly I could barely move it. Back at the laptop, the screen was still black, but the countdown was there. 10 hours remaining. Below it, a new message. Your turn soon. My blood froze. I didn't know what it meant, but I knew it wasn't a threat. It was a promise. I tried to think, to plan, to find a way out, but my mind was a mess of panic and guilt. I'd seen my neighbor's face, seen the pliers, heard the crack. Was he still alive? Was he suffering because of me? Because I'd clicked that link? I grabbed the laptop, intending to throw it out the window, but the screen flickered back on. The private room was empty again, but the mirror showed something new. A street, my street, lit by the faint glow of streetlights. I recognized the building across from mine, the cracked sidewalk, the flickering lamppost. The camera panned, and there, standing under the light, was the hooded figure from the feed. They were holding something, a phone, its screen glowing with the same feed I was watching. They tilted their head, and even through the screen I felt their gaze lock onto me. I dropped the laptop, the knife clattering to the floor. The whispering started again, my name over and over, not from the laptop but from everywhere, the walls, the ceiling, the air itself. I backed into the corner, sliding down the wall, my hands over my ears, but it didn't stop. The countdown was still ticking, and I was out of time. They were coming, and I had nowhere to run. The whispering didn't stop. It burrowed into my skull, my name looping in that guttural, inhuman rasp echoing from every corner of the apartment. I crouched in the corner, hands clamped over my ears, the knife forgotten on the floor. The laptop's glow pulsed through the room, a sickly blue heartbeat that wouldn't let me forget what I'd seen. My neighbor's bloodied face, the hooded figure under the streetlight, the mirror showing my world twisted into theirs. The countdown was at 10 hours, and I knew what it meant now. They weren't just watching me. They were coming for me. I had to move. Staying here cowering like a trapped animal wasn't an option. My eyes darted to the barricaded door, the chair wedged under the handle. It felt flimsy, useless against whatever was out there. The whispering grew louder, sharper, like a blade scraping bone, and I forced myself to stand, my legs shaking so badly I nearly collapsed. I grabbed the knife, its weight cold and reassuring, though I knew it wouldn't help. Not against this. I needed a plan, a way out, but my mind was a fog of panic, every thought drowned out by that relentless voice. First, I had to kill the laptop. It was their window into me, their anchor in my reality. I stumbled to the kitchen table, the screen still glowing, the private room feed frozen on that empty chair. The black box with its red, pulsing light sat on the table of tools, mocking me. I raised the knife, ready to drive it through the screen, but the whispering stopped, replaced by a single, clear word. Don't. I froze, my arm trembling, the blade inches from the glass. The screen flickered, and the mirror showed my apartment again, but this time it wasn't me in the reflection. It was the hooded figure standing in my kitchen, right behind where I stood now. I spun around, knife raised, but the room was empty. My breath came in ragged gasps, my heart pounding so hard it hurt. The screen flickered again, and the figure was gone, the mirror back to showing the empty private room. The chat was alive, messages scrolling. Close one. He's learning. Not fast enough. I slammed the laptop shut, grabbed the hammer from the floor, and smashed it down on the lid. The screen cracked, sparks spitting from the edges, but the glow didn't die. The whispering started again, louder, angrier, my name now mixed with other words I couldn't make out. A language that felt wrong, like it wasn't meant for human ears. I couldn't stay here. They knew where I was, and the countdown was ticking. I grabbed a backpack, stuffing it with essentials. Phone, battery still out, wallet, a change of clothes, the knife. I didn't know where to go, but anywhere was better than this apartment, this trap. I moved the chair from the door, my hands slick with sweat, and checked the peephole. The hallway was empty, but the air felt heavy, like it was holding its breath. I opened the door slowly, the creak deafening in the silence, and stepped out. The hallway was dark, the overhead lights flickering like they were on their last legs. I locked the door behind me, though I knew it wouldn't matter. My neighbor's door was 2 down, and I hesitated, my hand hovering over the knob. I had to know if he was still there, if he was alive. I knocked, softly at first, then harder. No answer. The silence was worse than a scream. I tried the knob, and to my surprise, it turned. The door swung open, revealing darkness. I stepped inside, the knife gripped tight, my eyes straining to adjust. The air smelled wrong. Metallic, sour, like the stench in my apartment, but stronger. My foot hit something soft, and I froze, looking down. A shoe, scuffed and stained with something dark. I backed away, my heart in my throat, and flicked on the light switch. The room was empty, but it wasn't right. The furniture was overturned, a coffee table splintered, a smear of blood trailing across the floor toward the bedroom. I didn't want to look, didn't want to see, but I had to. I followed the trail, the knife shaking in my hand. The bedroom was a slaughterhouse. Blood soaked the sheets, the walls, the floor, pooling in thick, congealing puddles. There was no body, no sign of my neighbor, just the aftermath. Tools were scattered on the bed, pliers, a knife, a hacksaw, all crusted with red. I gagged, stumbling back, my mind screaming that this was real, that they'd been here, that they'd done this. I turned to run, but something caught my eye. A laptop on the dresser, its screen glowing. The private room feed was open, the chair empty, but the mirror showed this room, this blood-soaked nightmare, with me standing in the center. I bolted, slamming the door behind me, my backpack bouncing against my spine as I ran down the hall. The whispering followed, not from the laptop, but from the walls, the ceiling, the air itself. My name, over and over, mixed with that guttural language that made my skin crawl. I hit the stairs, taking them 2 at a time, my breath burning in my chest. The street outside was quiet, too quiet, the streetlights flickering like they were in sync with my pulse. I didn't know where to go, but I kept moving, my sneakers pounding the pavement, the knife tucked into my waistband. I ended up at a 24-hour diner a few blocks away, the kind of place that smells like grease and regret. It was nearly empty, just a waitress wiping down counters and a trucker hunched over coffee. I slid into a booth, my backpack beside me, and tried to think. I needed help, but who could I call? The police wouldn't believe me, and I had no proof, just a smashed laptop and a memory of blood. I pulled out my phone, hesitating before sliding the battery back in. It powered on, and immediately a notification popped up. An email, no sender, no subject. My hands shook as I opened it. It was a single line. 9 hours remaining. I deleted it, my fingers fumbling, but another came through. You can't run. I deleted that too, but they kept coming, one after another, each with a new message. We see you. You're ours. The room is ready. I turned the phone off, ripping the battery out again, but the screen stayed on, the words burning into my eyes. The waitress glanced over, her face curious, and I forced a smile, hiding the phone under the table. I couldn't trust anyone, not now. I ordered coffee I didn't drink, just to have a reason to stay. My mind raced, piecing together what I knew. The site wasn't just a live stream, it was a trap. A system that didn't just show horrors but pulled you into them. The countdown, the mirror, the whispering, they were all part of it, a machine that fed on fear, on participation. I'd clicked the link, logged in, watched, and now I was marked. But why me? I wasn't special, just some idiot who got curious. Or maybe that was the point. Maybe they didn't need a reason. I had to find a way to break the connection. I couldn't go home, couldn't use my devices, but I needed information. The diner had a public computer in the corner, an ancient thing covered in dust. I waited until the waitress was busy, then slipped over, keeping my head down. I didn't dare use Tor or go back to the site, but I searched for anything about red rooms, dark web traps, anything that could explain what I was up against. Most of it was noise, conspiracy theories, urban legends, but one forum post caught my eye. It was old, buried in a thread about dark web myths, written by someone claiming they'd escaped a red room. They didn't give details, just a warning. Don't engage, don't respond. The more you interact, the deeper they pull you in. Cut all ties and disappear. Disappear. The word hit me like a brick. Could I do that? Leave everything, my apartment, my life, and vanish? I didn't have much, but the thought of running, of starting over, was overwhelming. And where would I go? They'd found my neighbor, found my room. They could find me anywhere. But I had to try. I left the diner, the cold night air biting my skin, and started walking. No destination. Just movement. The whispering was fainter now, but it was still there. A constant reminder that I wasn't free. I didn't see the hooded figure until I turned the corner. They were there, under a streetlight, their phone glowing, the same feed playing on its screen. They didn't move, didn't speak, just stood there, their head tilted, watching. I ran, my heart pounding, the whispering rising to a scream in my ears. I didn't look back. I couldn't. But I knew they were following, and the countdown was still ticking. My sneakers slapped against the pavement, each step a desperate bid to outrun the figure under the streetlight. The whispering chased me, my name woven into that guttural, otherworldly drone, louder now, like it was coming from inside my skull. I didn't dare look back, didn't want to see that hooded shape, its phone glowing with the feed that had my life trapped in its mirror. The city blurred around me, empty streets, flickering lights, shadows that seemed to twist and follow. My backpack bounced against my spine, the knife in my waistband digging into my hip, a constant reminder of how useless it was against this. 9 hours left, the email had said. 9 hours until what? I didn't know where I was going, just that I had to keep moving. The diner had been a mistake, too exposed, too public. I needed somewhere to hide, somewhere to think. My mind raced, grasping for options. A motel? Too traceable. A friend's place? I couldn't drag anyone else into this. The library, maybe. Public, anonymous, with computers I could use to dig deeper without touching my own devices. It was a thin plan, but it was something. I veered toward the public library a few miles away, its 24-hour study room a faint hope in the back of my mind. The streets were too quiet, the silence broken only by my ragged breathing and the faint hum of the whispering. Now a low pulse that matched my heartbeat. Every shadow felt like a threat, every alley a trap. I stuck to main roads, avoiding dark corners, but the feeling of being watched never left. My phone, battery still out, weighed heavy in my pocket. I didn't dare put it back together, but the urge to check it, to see if another email had come through, was almost overwhelming. I pushed it down, focusing on the library's distant glow, a beacon in the night. When I reached it, the glass doors reflected my pale, hollow face, my eyes wild with fear. The study room was empty except for a bored security guard scrolling on his phone and a couple of students slumped over textbooks. I slipped inside, keeping my head low, and found a computer in the corner, half hidden by a shelf. My hands were shaking as I logged in with a guest account, the knife tucked under my jacket, my backpack at my feet. I didn't know what I was looking for, but I had to find something, a way to break the connection, to stop the countdown, to escape. I searched for anything about dark web red rooms, focusing on forums and threads buried deep in search results. Most were repeats of the same myths, but one post stood out, from an anonymous user on a cybersecurity forum. They claimed to have worked for a dark web cleanup crew, people hired to scrub traces of sites like the one I'd found. Their post was short, cryptic. Red rooms aren't just streams, they're systems. They latch onto you through interaction, clicks, logins, even just watching. Once you're tagged, they don't need your IP. They have your digital footprint, your presence. Only way out is to go dark. No devices, no connections, no trace. Run and don't look back. Go dark. The words hit me like a punch. I'd already tried that, smashed the router, killed the phone. But it hadn't worked. The laptop had glowed without power. The feed had shown my room without a camera. This wasn't just tech. It was something else, something that didn't follow the rules. I kept digging, finding scraps of stories, people who'd stumbled into similar sites, seen their lives reflected back, and vanished. No bodies, no proof, just empty apartments and unanswered questions. One user mentioned a key, a way to sever the connection, but the post cut off, deleted mid-sentence. My stomach twisted. Was there a way out, or was this just another trap? The library's fluorescent lights flickered, and the whispering spiked, sharp and sudden. my name slicing through the hum. I froze, glancing around. The guard was still on his phone, the students oblivious. But the computer screen glitched, static rippling across it, and for a split second, the private room feed appeared. The chair was still empty, but the black box on the table was pulsing faster, its red light strobing. The mirror showed the library now. This exact corner, my face staring back, my hands on the keyboard. Behind me, in the reflection, was the hooded figure, closer than before, its eyeless grin wider, its long fingers resting on the shelf. I shoved away from the computer, my chair scraping loud enough to make the guard look up. I grabbed my backpack and bolted for the exit, my heart pounding so hard I thought it would burst. The whispering followed, louder, angrier, my name now mixed with that alien language, words that twisted my gut. I burst onto the street, the cold air hitting me like a slap, and kept running, weaving through alleys and side streets, trying to lose whatever was behind me. The library's glow faded, but the feeling of being watched didn't. I ended up in an abandoned lot, overgrown with weeds, a rusted chain-link fence sagging around it. My legs gave out and I collapsed behind a pile of broken concrete, my breath coming in sobs. The knife was still in my waistband, but it felt like a toy, useless against the thing that was hunting me. I checked my watch. 6 hours left. The countdown was relentless, and I was running out of places to hide. I pulled out my phone, staring at the dead battery, tempted to put it back in, to see if there was a message, a clue, anything. But I didn't. I couldn't risk it. The whispering was quieter here, but it hadn't stopped. It was in the air, in the rustle of the weeds, in the distant hum of the city. I closed my eyes, trying to think. The forum post had mentioned a key, something to break the connection. Maybe it was a file, a code, a ritual. I didn't know, but I had to find it. I couldn't keep running blind. I needed a plan, a destination. There was a hacker I'd heard of, someone from the old forum days who went by Ghost. They were a legend, someone who'd supposedly cracked dark web systems before disappearing. If anyone knew how to fight this, it was them. But finding Ghost meant going back online, risking exposure. I weighed my options. Stay offline, keep running, and hope the countdown ran out without finding me? Or take the risk, find a way to contact Ghost and pray they had answers? The whispering grew sharper, my name cutting through the night. And I knew I couldn't just run. They'd find me. They always did. I stood, my legs shaky, and headed for a 24-hour internet cafe I'd passed earlier, a grimy hole in the wall where no one asked questions. It was a gamble, but it was all I had. The cafe was nearly empty, just a couple of kids playing games and a clerk half asleep behind the counter. I paid cash for a terminal in the back, my hood up, my face turned from the cameras. The computer was slow, the keyboard sticky, but it worked. I avoided Tor, sticking to ClearNet forums where Ghost was rumored to lurk. I posted a vague message, using old slang I'd seen in hacker threads. Looking for Ghost. Need a key to lock a bad door. Urgent. I didn't expect a reply, but I had to try. Minutes passed, the whispering a constant drone in my ears. Then a private message pinged. No username, just a string of numbers. You're tagged. Meet me at the old warehouse on 5th. 1 hour. Come alone. My heart sank. Was it Ghost? A trap? I didn't know, but I couldn't stay here. The cafe's lights flickered, and the screen glitched, the private room feed flashing for a moment. My face, the warehouse, the hooded figure waiting. I logged off, grabbed my backpack, and ran, the knife in my hand, the countdown burning in my mind. 5 hours left, and I was walking into the unknown, praying I'd find a way out before they found me. The city felt like a maze closing in around me as I made my way to the old warehouse on 5th. The whispering clung to me, my name a jagged rhythm in that unnatural, guttural tone, seeping from the shadows of every alley I passed. My backpack was heavy with dread, the knife in my waistband a cold weight against my skin, useless but comforting. The countdown was down to 5 hours, each second ticking louder in my head than the last. The message from the anonymous user, maybe Ghost, maybe a trap, was my only lead, a thin thread of hope against the suffocating fear that they were already one step ahead. The warehouse loomed at the edge of the industrial district, a crumbling skeleton of rusted metal and broken windows, its silhouette jagged against the night sky. The streetlights here were dead, the only light coming from the faint glow of my phone's screen, which I'd risked turning on to check the time. No new messages, no emails, just the clock counting down. I slipped the battery out again, shoving it deep into my pocket, and crept toward the warehouse, my sneakers crunching on broken glass. The air was thick with the smell of oil and decay, and the whispering grew louder, sharper, like it knew where I was. The warehouse door was ajar, a black maw inviting me in. I hesitated, gripping the knife, my heart pounding so hard it hurt. This was a mistake. Every instinct screamed. But what choice did I have? Stay out here and wait for the hooded figure to find me? I pushed the door open, the creak echoing like a gunshot in the silence. Inside, the darkness was absolute, broken only by slivers of moonlight filtering through the shattered roof. The air was cold, damp, and the whispering was everywhere now, bouncing off the walls, my name layered with those alien words that twisted my gut. I moved slowly, my eyes adjusting to the gloom. The warehouse was a labyrinth of rusted machinery and rotting crates, the floor slick with puddles that smelled of something foul. I kept the knife raised, my other hand trailing along the wall for balance. The message had said to come alone, but I didn't trust it. I didn't trust anything anymore. Every shadow felt like the hooded figure, every creak like their footsteps. I strained to listen past the whispering, searching for any sign of ghost or whoever had sent that message. A faint glow caught my eye, coming from deeper inside behind a stack of crates. I crept toward it, my breath shallow, the knife trembling in my hand. The glow was from a laptop, its screen the only light in the darkness casting sharp shadows across the concrete. It was open to the private room feed, the chair empty, the black box on the table pulsing red. The mirror showed the warehouse now, this exact spot, with me standing in front of the laptop, my face pale and drawn, the knife glinting in my hand. Behind me, in the reflection, was the hooded figure, closer than ever, its eyeless grin wide and gleaming. I spun around, slashing the air with the knife, but there was nothing. Just the crates, the darkness, the echo of my own ragged breathing. The whispering spiked, my name a scream that made my ears ring. I turned back to the laptop, and the mirror was empty again, just the private room staring back. The chat was alive, messages scrolling. He's here. Too late. Time's up. My stomach dropped. The countdown on the screen read 4 hours remaining. I hadn't noticed it tick down, but it was moving faster now, relentless. A noise behind me, a soft scrape, like a shoe on concrete. I whipped around, knife raised, and saw a figure step from the shadows. Not the hooded figure, but someone else, slight and wiry, their face hidden by a hoodie. They raised their hands, palms out, their voice low and urgent. "Don't move. You're tagged, and they're close." It was a woman's voice, sharp but steady, and I froze, the knife still up, my heart hammering. "Ghost?" I whispered. She nodded, pulling back her hood just enough to reveal a pale face, sharp cheekbones, and eyes that darted like she was expecting an attack. "You're in deep," she said, stepping closer, her gaze flicking to the laptop. "That's not just a feed. It's a hook. They've got your digital soul and they're reeling you in." I wanted to ask what she meant, how she knew, but the whispering was deafening now, my name a chorus of jagged voices. She grabbed my arm, pulling me toward the laptop. "We don't have time. You need to cut the connection." "How?" I asked, my voice breaking. The knife felt useless in my hand, the warehouse closing in like a trap. Ghost didn't answer, just crouched by the laptop, pulling a USB drive from her pocket. She plugged it in, her fingers flying across the keys, pulling up lines of code I couldn't follow. The screen glitched, the feed flickering, but the private room stayed, the black box pulsing faster, the mirror showing us now. Ghost at the keyboard, me standing behind her, the hooded figure looming in the background. "They're fighting it," Ghost muttered, her voice tight. "They know we're here." The whispering turned into a low growl, the air heavy with that metallic, decayed stench. I gripped the knife, my eyes darting around the warehouse, expecting the figure to step out of the shadows. Ghost kept typing, the screen flashing warnings, code scrolling too fast to read. "There's a key," she said, not looking up. "A back door in their system. If we can find it, we can shut it down, untangle you, but it's not easy. They don't let go." The laptop sparked, a sharp pop that made me jump. The screen went black, then flared back to life, the private room clearer than ever. The chair wasn't empty anymore. It was Ghost, strapped down, her wrists bleeding from wire restraints, her face pale but defiant. She cursed under her breath, yanking the USB drive out. "They're faster than I thought," she said, standing, her eyes scanning the darkness. "We need to move, now." I didn't argue. We ran, weaving through the crates, the whispering chasing us, my name a scream that echoed off the walls. The knife was still in my hand, but it felt like a child's toy against the thing that was coming. Ghost led the way, her steps sure despite the panic in her eyes. "They're not just online," she said as we ducked behind a rusted machine. "They're here, in the world. That figure, it's not human. It's their anchor, their way in." We reached a back exit, a heavy metal door half off its hinges. Ghost pushed it open, and we stumbled into an alley, the cold air biting my skin. The whispering didn't stop, but it was fainter now, like it was struggling to follow. Ghost grabbed my arm, pulling me toward a van parked at the alley's end. "Get in," she said, already climbing into the driver's seat. I hesitated, the knife still in my hand, but the countdown was burning in my mind. 4 hours left. I got in. The van roared to life and we peeled out, the city blurring past. Ghost didn't speak, her eyes fixed on the road, her hands tight on the wheel. I wanted to ask where we were going, what the key was, how she knew so much, but the words wouldn't come. The whispering was still there, faint but persistent, my name a constant threat. I checked the rearview mirror, expecting to see the hooded figure, but the street was empty. For now. "We're going to a safe house," Ghost finally said, her voice low. "I've got equipment there, better than that junk laptop. If we can find the key, we can end this, but you need to trust me." I nodded, though trust felt like a luxury I couldn't afford. The van's engine hummed, the city fading into the distance, but the countdown was still ticking, and I knew the figure wasn't far behind. The knife in my lap gleamed under the dashboard light, a reminder that running wasn't enough. I had to fight and I had to win, or the chair in the private room would be mine. The van rattled through the city's outskirts, its engine a low growl under the faint, persistent whisper of my name, now a dull hum in the back of my skull. Ghost drove with a focus that bordered on obsession, her eyes flicking between the road and the rearview mirror, as if she expected the hooded figure to appear in the headlights. My hands gripped the knife in my lap, the blade catching the dim glow of the dashboard, its edge a useless comfort against the thing that was hunting me. The countdown was down to 3 hours, each minute heavier than the last, and I could feel it pressing against me, a weight I couldn't shake. The safe house was my last chance, Ghost's promise of a key the only thing keeping me from breaking down completely. The whispering hadn't stopped, but it was quieter now, like it was biding its time. The stench of blood and decay lingered in my nose, a reminder of my neighbor's apartment, the blood-soaked sheets, the tools scattered like trophies. I glanced at Ghost, her face half lit by the passing streetlights, her jaw tight. "What's the key?" I asked, my voice hoarse, barely audible over the engine. "You keep saying it's a back door, but what is it?" She didn't look at me, her eyes locked on the road. "It's code," she said. "A kill switch buried in their system. Red rooms like this, they're not just sites. They're alive in a way. They feed on interaction, on fear. The more you engage, the stronger they get. The key's a way to starve it, cut it off from you. But it's hidden deep, and they guard it." Her voice was steady, but there was an edge to it, like she'd seen too much to believe we'd make it. "How do you know all this?" I pressed, the knife twisting in my hands. "You've done this before?" She hesitated, her fingers tightening on the wheel. "I've seen it," she said finally. "I got out once. Barely. They don't let go easy." She didn't elaborate, and I didn't push. The look in her eyes told me enough. Whatever she'd been through had left scars, the kind you don't talk about. We pulled into a derelict industrial park, the van's headlights sweeping across boarded-up buildings and overgrown lots. The safe house was a squat, concrete bunker, its windows dark, its door reinforced with steel. Ghost killed the engine, and the silence was deafening, the whispering spiking as if it sensed we were close to something. "Stay sharp," she said, grabbing a duffel bag from the back. "They know we're here." Inside, the safe house was a fortress of tech, monitors, servers, cables snaking across the floor like veins. Ghost dropped her bag and powered up a rig that looked like it belonged in a sci-fi movie, screens flickering to life with lines of code. The whispering grew louder, my name a jagged chant, and I clutched the knife, my eyes darting to the shadows. The room felt too small, the air too thick, like it was waiting for something to break through. Ghost plugged in her USB drive, her fingers a blur on the keyboard. "I'm going to try to find the key," she said. "But you need to watch my back. If that thing shows up, don't hesitate. It's not human. It doesn't die easy." I nodded, my throat dry, the knife heavy in my hand. I didn't know what I was supposed to do if the hooded figure appeared, but I'd try. I had to. The screens glitched, static rippling across them, and the private room feed appeared unbidden. The chair was empty, the black box pulsing red, its wires twitching like they were alive. The mirror showed the safe house now, this room, with Ghost at the keyboard and me standing behind her, knife raised. The hooded figure was there too, in the reflection, its eyeless grin wider than ever, its long fingers brushing the edge of the mirror like it could step through. I spun around, slashing at the air, but the room was empty, just us and the hum of the servers. "They're fighting back," Ghost said, her voice tight. "They know we're close." The screens flickered again and the feed changed, showing my neighbor's apartment, the blood-soaked bedroom, then my own apartment, the smashed laptop still glowing. The images cycled faster. My face, Ghost's face, the hooded figure, the chair, the black box, all blurring together. The whispering became a scream, my name tearing through the room, and the air grew heavy with that metallic, decayed stench. Ghost cursed, yanking cables from the rig, but the screen stayed on, the feed growing sharper. "It's in the system," she said, her voice rising. "It's not just code anymore. It's here." She grabbed a crowbar from her bag, smashing one of the monitors, but the feed jumped to another, then another, like it was mocking us. I backed against the wall, the knife useless in my shaking hand, my eyes locked on the mirror in the feed. It showed us, but now the hooded figure was closer, its fingers pressing against the glass, cracks spider-webbing across it. "We need to move," Ghost said, grabbing her bag. "The key's not here. It's deeper, somewhere they don't want us to look." She pulled a burner phone from her pocket, typing a message I couldn't see. "I've got a contact, someone who might know where it's hidden, but we have to get out before—" The door rattled, a low, deliberate thud that cut her off. The whispering stopped, replaced by a new sound, a wet, gurgling laugh like someone drowning in their own blood. I gripped the knife, my heart pounding, as Ghost grabbed the crowbar, her eyes wide but focused. "Don't let it touch you," she whispered. "If it does, you're theirs." The door burst open, and the hooded figure stood there, its phone glowing with the private room feed, my face staring back from the screen. Its eyeless grin split wider, revealing rows of jagged teeth, and it moved too fast, too wrong, its limbs bending in ways they shouldn't. I swung the knife, but it was like cutting air. The figure flickered, like a glitch, and reappeared closer, its hand reaching for me. Ghost swung the crowbar, catching it in the side, and it staggered, its laugh turning into a scream that shook the room. "Run!" Ghost yelled, shoving me toward a back exit. We bolted, the figure's scream chasing us, the whispering back and louder than ever. The safe house's lights flickered, the screens exploding in sparks behind us. We stumbled into another alley, the van waiting, and Ghost floored it, the tires screeching as we tore away. The figure didn't follow, but I could feel its gaze, its grin, burning into me through the rearview mirror. "Where are we going?" I gasped, the knife still in my hand, my knuckles white. "Somewhere they can't reach," Ghost said, her voice grim. "My contact knows a server farm, off-grid, where the key might be. It's our last shot." She didn't look at me, her eyes fixed on the road, but I saw the fear in her face, the same fear I felt. The countdown was at 2 hours, and the whispering was growing louder, my name a promise of what was coming. The knife felt heavier, the van's engine a roar against the scream in my head, and I knew we were running out of time. The figure was still out there, and it wasn't done with me yet. The van screamed through the night, the city a blur of shadows and flickering lights as Ghost pushed the engine to its limit. The whispering was a relentless storm in my head, my name twisted into that guttural alien chant, louder with every mile, as if the thing we were running from was closing in. The knife in my hand was slick with sweat, useless against the hooded figure's eyeless grin, its jagged teeth still burned into my memory from the safe house. The countdown was down to 1 hour, a ticking bomb in my mind, and Ghost's contact, the server farm, the key, was our last hope. I didn't know if I believed in it anymore, but I had to try. Giving up meant the chair, the wires, the blood. Ghost didn't speak, her eyes locked on the road, her knuckles white on the wheel. The van swerved into a rural stretch, the city fading into fields and skeletal trees, the air heavy with the stench of decay that followed us everywhere now. "It's close," she said finally, her voice tight, barely audible over the engine and the whispering. "The server farm's off-grid, hidden. My contact's been digging into these systems for years. If the key's anywhere, it's there." She didn't sound convinced, and neither was I. The hooded figure had found us too easily, too fast. It wasn't bound by distance or logic. We pulled into a dirt lot, the van's headlights cutting through the darkness to reveal a low concrete building, its walls stained with moss and rust. No lights, no signs of life, just a heavy steel door and a faint hum vibrating through the ground, like the pulse of something alive. Ghost killed the engine, and the whispering surged, my name a scream that made my vision blur. I gripped the knife, my heart pounding, as she grabbed her duffel bag and a flashlight. "Stay close," she said, her eyes scanning the darkness. "We don't have much time." The door was unlocked, which felt wrong, like it was waiting for us. Inside, the air was cold and thick with the smell of metal and ozone. Rows of servers stretched into the shadows, their lights blinking like eyes, cables snaking across the floor like veins. The whispering was deafening now, my name layered with that alien language, echoing off the walls. Ghost moved fast, setting up a laptop from her bag, its screen casting a pale glow. "The key's in their system," she said, her fingers flying across the keys. "It's a kill switch, a way to sever their hold. But we have to find it before they find us." The screen glitched, static rippling, and the private room feed appeared without warning. The chair was empty, the black box pulsing red, its wires writhing like they were alive. The mirror showed this room, the server farm, with me and Ghost standing in front of the laptop. Behind us, in the reflection, was the hooded figure, its long fingers pressed against the glass, cracks spreading like a web. I spun around, knife raised, but the room was empty. Just the hum of the servers and the whispering tearing through my head. "They're here," Ghost said, her voice shaking but focused. She pulled a USB drive from her bag, plugging it in, code scrolling across the screen. "Keep them off me. Buy me time." I nodded, my hands trembling, the knife feeling like a toy against what was coming. The air grew heavier, the stench of blood and decay choking me. The servers flickered, their lights strobing, and the whispering became a scream, my name a blade carving into my skull. A low laugh echoed, wet and gurgling from the shadows. The hooded figure stepped into the light, its phone glowing with the feed, my face staring back from the screen. Its grin was wider, its teeth sharper, its limbs bending at angles that made my stomach lurch. I swung the knife, but it flickered, glitching like a broken video, reappearing closer, its hand reaching for me. Ghost shouted something, but I couldn't hear her over the scream in my head. I slashed again, the blade passing through air, and the figure laughed, its voice shaking the room. Ghost's laptop sparked, the screen flashing warnings, but she kept typing, her face pale and determined. "I've got it!" she yelled, her voice cutting through the noise. "The key! It's here!" The screen showed a single file, a string of code labeled Terminate. She hit enter, and the servers whined, a high-pitched screech that drowned out the whispering. The hooded figure froze, its grin faltering, its body glitching, fragments of it dissolving into static. The feed flickered, the mirror cracking, the private room fading to black. But it wasn't over. The figure lunged, its fingers grazing my arm, cold and wrong, like touching death itself. I screamed, stumbling back, the knife falling from my hand. Ghost grabbed me, pulling me toward the door as the servers sparked and smoked, the room shaking like it was collapsing. The figure's laugh turned into a howl, its body breaking apart, but its eyes, those empty, grinning sockets, stayed locked on me, burning into my soul. We burst into the night, the van waiting, and Ghost floored it, the server farm shrinking in the rearview mirror as sparks lit up the sky behind us. The whispering was gone, the air lighter, the stench fading. My heart still pounded, my arm burning where the figure had touched me, a faint, dark mark spreading under my skin like ink. Ghost didn't speak, her eyes fixed on the road, her hands shaking on the wheel. "Did it work?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. She nodded, but her face was grim. "The key shut it down. The system's dead, and you're untagged. They can't find you anymore." She paused, glancing at my arm, the mark now a faint web of black veins. "But you're not clean. That touch, it's a scar. They'll always know you were there." I stared at the mark, my stomach twisting. The countdown was gone, the whispering silent, but the fear hadn't left. I saw the chair, the blood, my neighbor's face, the figure's grin, every night when I closed my eyes. Ghost dropped me off at a bus station, handing me a burner phone and a wad of cash. "Disappear," she said. "No tech, no trace. Live small, or they'll find another way." She didn't wait for a reply, just drove off, her van swallowed by the dawn. I took a bus to nowhere, a small town with no name, where I paid cash for a room and stayed offline. The mark on my arm faded, but it never disappeared, a reminder of the line I'd crossed. I don't sleep much anymore. The silence is too loud, too empty, like it's waiting for the whispering to return. Sometimes, in the dark, I think I see the hooded figure in the corner of my room, its grin wide, its phone glowing. I blink, and it's gone. But I know it's not over. It never will be. I clicked the link. I watched. And even though I escaped the chair, the red room took something from me, something I'll never get back. The dark web doesn't forget, and neither do I. Thank you for listening. Hope I didn't scare you too much. If you like my stories, please consider giving me a like and subscribe. See you next time.